Hello and welcome to a much overdue episode of the Way Out Filmcast. My name again is Lucas Stiverson, and I know I've been gone for a long time on the podcast side. I've been busy doing my web series called Lucas Michaels Show, and that really has taken up a lot of time. It's a bi-weekly release, but it does take a long time to plan and record, so it has been sucking up a lot of time. I am meaning to get back on a regular schedule to do this, so hopefully it'll come back as a weekly thing. And this episode, I'm not really going to get into movie recommendations. I'm not really going to go over what I've been watching, because this is something I've been wanting to do topic-wise since I started this. And the topic is really about the decline of the movie-going experience. And the decline of the movie-going experience for specifically one genre of movie. And it's actually one of my favorite genres out there. So in order to properly go into my mini rant, I guess it would be called, is I got to set the scene. And it's going to go back to when I was 17 years old, so all the way back to 1999. When a little movie called The Blair Witch Project came out. And if you don't remember, you should remember, but if you're not old enough to remember or it just passed you by somehow, the marketing campaign behind this film was one of the best ever. It was portrayed as a real true story. The actors in the movie were considered dead, considered no longer around. Their footage, they went off into the woods, never to be seen again. And the way that the filmmakers marketed this, the websites had, police reports, they had crime scene footage, they had everything down to a T, as if there was an investigation of these missing students. And it just made you want to see the movie. I mean, I think the movie cost them $30,000 to make, and behind the strong marketing campaign, they raked in a ton of money. I think it's still considered one of the most profitable movies based on the budget against the gross money that they made. Sorry, I had to take the headphones off. But I remember going and seeing this film, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a movie like it, where it was the found footage. It was the footage that the filmmakers, the quote-unquote documentary makers for the Blair Witch Project, filmed themselves from the time they started their film to their untimely demise. And we kind of got an inside look at the last few days of someone's lives. And it was so effective because it was so refreshing. It wasn't the narrative form of horror thriller movie where you kind of gets down to the point where you know what's going to happen through the first, second, and third act. With the Blair Witch Project, it was completely different. And I went and saw this movie at the theater, and I remember being white-knuckled, gripping the theater seat up until the very last frame. And I wasn't the only one in the theater that was like that. The entire theater seemed so enthralled. It was such a quiet hush amongst the crowd. And I was legitimately scared because of the atmosphere in the theater, what was going on the screen. And it just made me want to see more movies like that. Unfortunately, no movies at the time were coming to the theater like that. So I had to go to the internet and do some searches of movies that were similar. And you get the inevitable Cannibal Holocaust comparisons, because it was technically one of the first found footage style movies, and I wasn't a big fan of that whole cannibal craze where people went into the jungle and were tortured and eaten by cannibals. Not really something that I got too interested in. And then I found The Last Broadcast, which technically was made before the Blair Witch Project. A lot of comparisons were drawn to it, but The Last Broadcast is really not too much like the Blair Witch Project. The Last Broadcast is more documentary style. It's actually the film is a documentary about the deaths of three guys who died in the woods. So I guess that's where the similarities begin, and the fact that it was portrayed as being true, actual events. The thing about the last broadcast is the ending is terrible, whereas the Blair Witch Project, the ending is amazing. So now I'm going to fast forward, because again, between the Blair Witch Project and modern times, with now the found footage genre is kind of big. You know, you see one at least once a year, one or two hit the theater where it's filmed as one of the characters is holding the camera. You've had the Cloverfields, you've had the Last Exorcisms, you've had the Paranormal Activity trilogies as of right now, Chronicle, The Devil Inside, all those movies. But the thing is, the gap between them was kind of unbearable, because I really love this genre. So when Paranormal Activity came out, and they did kind of the same thing as Blair Witch, they had a great marketing campaign where you would go online and you would request to have Paranormal Activity played in your theater because it's the scariest movie ever made. It showed crowd reaction of everyone in the crowd silence, just gripped and freaking out. And I really wanted it, so I was one of the ones who went to the website. I was like, come to Virginia Beach. I want to see this movie. I went and seen it, and I loved it. But what I hated, and this is where I'm going to get into, is the crowd now that goes to the theater to watch what is obviously a found footage movie, what is obviously going to be a slow burn up until some crazy events start happening and the movie gets really intense. It is not an unusual formula anymore. It's been done. People know what to expect. But every time now that I see a found footage movie in the theater, I have at least 10 to 20 people in the theater that I'm in yelling at the screen, complaining how boring it is, how stupid the people are on there, how much they hate this type of movie, how they wish they never would have spent their money on it. And I gotta say, like, again, it's no secret that the movies are going to be like that. You go into this movie, you have seen the trailer. You see what it's like. You know it's going to be first-person perspective. You know that the main characters are going to be the ones manning the camera. You know that it's going to be like a haunted house. You got to try to pick out what's going on. You got to browse the screen. You got to be interactive with these movies. But the crowd just makes it so hard to be interactive because they're always bitching and moaning about how slow it's taken. And I don't want to hear your thoughts. If you want to riff on movies like that, fine, do it at home. These movies will be on Blu-ray, they'll be on DVD, they'll be in Redbox and Blockbuster Express really soon, and they'll probably pop up on Netflix and Hulu Plus and Amazon or whatever you use. It will be there. So do that at home. Turn the lights off and pretend like you're, on the Mystery Science Theater days and you're joking with your friends. I don't want to hear you do it in the theater. It ruins my experience because, again, I love this genre of movies. I searched them out with that gap between Blair Witch and probably Paranormal Activity really brought it back. There was a lot of terrible ones. You have, a Gacy House or Alien Origin, which is recently released through Asylum. You had, Paranormal Entity came out after Paranormal Activity. There's the Wicksboro Incident, which is based on aliens. I own it, but haven't watched it yet. You had The Fourth Kind, which was a merger of found footage with narrative film. It's an explosion. And again, the best way of seeing these is in the theater, but the crowd makes it the worst way of seeing it. I didn't even bother seeing the second Paranormal Activity in the theater because I was so disappointed with the way people acted when I seen the first one. And then when I watched the second one at home, I really wanted to enjoy it, but I was taken out of it because I'm sitting at home on my couch in comfort, and I just couldn't get into it. So then I seen the third one at the theater, which I really liked. I think it's the best one of the three so far. But again, the crowd in the theater did whatever they could to ruin it for me, of screaming of how boring this is, and I can't believe I wasted my money on it. Don't fucking waste your money on it. Don't go to it. Is it that hard? You know what it's going to be at this point. The Devil Inside was the same way. That movie got ravaged by the users of websites saying how terrible it was, how boring it was, how stupid the ending was, how unscary it was. And how disappointed they were when they seen it because it wasn't the type of movie they were expecting. And I don't know what they were expecting. I got exactly what I was expecting out of that movie, and I really enjoyed it. The ending didn't even bother me. It was weird, I guess, but it was abrupt, and all found footage movies end abruptly. The Last Exorcism got the same thing when I was watching it in the theater. As soon as it ended, people are like, this was dumb, it was a waste of money. I don't want to hear that because I like to enjoy myself. When I spend that much to go to a movie at the theater, I like to enjoy myself. And I am not finding enjoyment having someone 5 rows behind me screaming at how boring a 15-minute span of the movie is. Don't go see them. They are all slow burns. And actually, The Devil Inside is the least slow burning found footage movie. If you think about it, it moves pretty quick, and it's filmed like a documentary. If you don't like documentaries, don't go watch it. The Last Exorcism, the same way. It's filmed like a documentary. Everyone said it was so boring and so dumb. If you don't like documentaries, why would you watch it? If you don't like found footage movies, why would you watch it? Stop ruining it for people who actually enjoy it. And these found footage movies, again, are meant to be seen in the theater because that's where you get the most impact. You get to see it on the big screen. You get the great sound. You get to actually let yourself go. You get to become part of it. And that's where they become the most effective. Again, I go back to Blair Witch. That was the first time I remember. I was probably scared before, but the Blair Witch was the first time I remember actually being scared watching a movie in the theater. And I was hoping to get that same feeling again because these types of movies actually allow you to get lost and get that feeling, but people are ruining it. The theater-going experience, especially for found footage movies, is in a terrible decline, and it's not going to change. The movies are going to keep making a ton of money, but people are going to keep going and keep ruining it. I mean, it's bad for every type of movie, but specifically one of my favorite genres of films. That's really what I had to say. Sorry, this is like a little bit different than what I normally do. I did go into kind of a few movies that I would recommend. I do recommend The Last Broadcast if you can get your hands on it. I found it at FYE for like $5, so I do recommend that. There's a Spanish found footage movie. It's called Atrocious. A lot of people panned that as well, but I thought it was really good for the way that they took the slow burn and they made it painfully slow, and I thought that was good because when you expected something to happen and it didn't, it made you think more and more, and you just got more into it. So I would recommend that. That's on Netflix. Watch instantly. So there's a couple recommendations. And here's my biggest recommendation of this entire episode. If you don't like found footage movies, don't fucking go to the theater. Stop ruining my experience. So anyways, that's it for this episode. If you want to hear other ones, go to wayoutfilms.com. Also check out Lucas Michael's show at youtube.com/RealWayOutFilms. The videos are also embedded onto my website. Follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/themovieroom. And also you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/wayoutfilms. So next time I record an episode, I actually have 4 planned out and ready to do. So again, this will be back on a regular schedule. And so again, until next time, enjoy your movies and don't ruin them for other people.